Buenas tardes. What you are seeing now is what we call a mouth's eye view of eating. When you eat, you put something from the world into your mouth. That's a very intimate act. Most everything from the world that goes into your body comes through your mouth. You care deeply about this. If you don't eat, you die. You have to get nutrition through your mouth, but also some very poisonous or infectious things can come in there. So you feel very strongly about what gets into your mouth. And you will in 100 years too. This is what happens when too much goes through your mouth. You are a glutton and you become fat. Now, an interesting thing about gluttony, unlike other of the deadly sins, is that when you sin and eat too much, it shows on your body. If you murder 2 people, you don't get 2 stripes on your sleeve. But if you eat a lot, your body shows it. So it's a record of your immorality. It's the only sin that is worn on your body. Or as Orson Welles said, gluttony is not a secret vice. Now, just to give you a sense of what gluttony might be on a cultural level, one consequence of it is obesity, and you can see there that the United States and Mexico, among the larger countries in the world, are right at the top in obesity, about 1/3 of the population. France, about half of that, very little in India, which should not surprise you. Now, here is the example of the Thanksgiving dinner, the American gluttonous event, right? That is the event in which, coming up very shortly, we all sit around the table and eat as much as we can, and grandma is not happy unless somebody says, I ate so much I can't get up from the table. That's part of the American tradition. That's our little piece of gluttony. Now, I've been asked to talk about eating and food in the 22nd century. I don't make predictions. I don't think experts can make any better predictions than other people, so I'm very reluctant to do it, but for the first time in my life, I'm going to do it now. But just to give you a sense of how wrong I can be, here is a record of the amount of bottled water sold in the United States over the past 30 years. See, it's gone up. This is in billions of gallons. If you asked me 30 years ago, would Americans drink bottled water? We didn't drink anything. I would have said, that's crazy. We have tap water that's as good as bottled water. Why pay more than the price of gas for bottled water? And the answer is, I would have been wrong. It's a remarkable fact. So with that proviso that I really wouldn't have predicted this, let's move ahead. So I'm going to talk about 3 major determinants of what we eat. One is availability and cost. You can't eat something if it isn't there. Nobody outside of the Americas could have eaten tomatoes before 1500 because they came from Mexico. They wouldn't have had them. Globalization is making all the foods of the world available to everybody, and the modern food efficiencies and technology is making it cheaper. So everyone's going to have more food over the next 100 years, more different kinds of food, and we're going to have everyone's food if we want them. Unfortunately, most countries in the world like to copy the United States. President Bush slowed this down a little because he was unpopular in the world, so he may have slowed globalization down a little bit, but it's back up again. Pizza is moving to be the world's #1 food. It is already the #1 food in the United States, the most favored food among Americans. Just look at McDonald's. This just shows you how many McDonald's there are. It's even successful in France, a country which I'll discuss a little bit later. The second determinant I want to mention of eating is taste. People eat what they like. And the 2 things that most predict whether they like something or not is, does it have fat and does it have sugar? Both of which are part of our evolved biology, both of which indicate presence of calories. What is the most, the quintessential caloric food is one that humans have made from a food of Mexican origin, chocolate. Chocolate is a calorie bomb. It is fat and sugar all in one little package with the delicious melt in the mouth. It is going to be a much bigger part of the future. Just to show you, this is the annual consumption of chocolate, kilograms per person per year, 1.8 kilograms in Europe and 0.1 in Africa and Asia. Most of the people in the world live in Asia, 60%. They're not eating chocolate. I'm pretty sure they're going to get to do it because it tastes so great once you try it. Just another thing that's happening that's going to affect all of your eating is the revolution in modern cuisine. This period now, the last 20 years and the next 20 or 30, is the most revolutionary period in the history of cuisine. All the old barriers of traditional cuisines are being broken, and all kinds of new creative foods are occurring. The home for that, or the origin of it, is the restaurant El Bulli in northern Spain. Ferran Adria, surely the great chef of the 20th, 21st century so far. I had a meal of 34-course meal there. Took 6 hours. I wasn't full when I was finished. And I just want to show you one thing to give you an idea of that kind of meal. This is a dish, one of the 34 courses. It's steaming hot pine nut extract. It's an extract of pine nuts, as hot as you can get it, and it's served in a glass coated with ice. So when you drink it, it becomes cold, but you have all the aroma of something hot. You have never in your life had anything cold and aromatic, because cold suppresses evaporation. Audrey has found a way to restructure the world so you can get a cold aromatic substance. My son was with me at this meal. He became a molecular gastronomer, which this is called, but it's not just molecular gastronomy, it's just being creative. Here is a meal, a part of a meal of a 15-course he made, and this course, which is this is a course of tomatoes 5 ways. You start in the middle with the original roasted tomato, and you go around and eat this way until you get to gazpacho at the top. Each dish is a further transformation of the tomato, making it less like a tomato. So you put a narrative, a story into a dish. Third eating determinant I want to mention is convenience. People don't like to work to get their food. People don't like to work to do anything. It was generally adaptive in our ancestral environment to put out as little energy as possible. But now we've gone to the extreme, you can click and get food. So there's been a major decline in cooking. Cooking is now a hobby. If you like it, do it, but you don't have to. In the next 100 years, we already have the technology. You're going to get 3D food printers. We have them already. You just put tomato paste in one, a little dough for noodles in another. It'll squirt out according to a program. You'll make yourself lasagna. It'll even heat it up for you. You can get anything you want right in your home. Or now, if you can't get it now, you can just call someone up or click on something and get a meal delivered. Benjamin Franklin, probably the greatest American, said one should eat to live, not live to eat. It's one of the few things he said I don't agree with. How many of you would say you eat to live rather than live to eat? Can I see hands? How many of you say you live to eat rather than eat to live? Okay, well, live to eat one, but most of you didn't vote. Well, that's the way it always is. Okay. With increasing wealth around the world, which is definitely occurring, I think there's going to be a transition from eat to live to live to eat. So that's going to be another event of the coming years. Now, someone just spoke about water, so I didn't know about that until just now. So let me just say, in the developed world, we have a big water shortage, as in some of the developing world, particularly, say, in the Southwest United States. There's technology to deal with it. You can take sewer water, force it through a membrane, and get pure water. It's efficient, it works, but people don't want it because they say toilet to tap. That was just sewage, and now it's for me. Well, of course, all water is toilet to tap. Everyone in Europe, when they take a glass of water, drinks at least a few molecules that went through Adolf Hitler. I mean, the whole world is contaminated. So that's not a really good excuse. In any event, Singapore is way ahead of the world on this. They have developed this technology. They're using it, and they're converting to recycled water because they don't get enough water, and they're overcoming people's disgust at this by gradually introducing it and using very good marketing techniques. The people who gave us bottled water should be able to promote recycled water, something like this: original water, not from concentrate. I mean, that's of course true, but okay. So the next thing I want to address is food security. Very briefly, you just heard 2 talks about it. From Mexico, we get corn, the most domesticated in Mexico, right near here, the most efficient source of calories in the world per acre. It's an incredible food. It comes to us through technology and domestication. I'm working with Matt Ruby, who's here in the audience, on getting people to eat insects, both in the developing world and developed world. I'm not going to give you the whole argument for it. You just heard it. Very common around here is chapulines. That's crickets or grasshoppers. You can get them a few blocks from here. They're delicious. Mexico is one of the leading countries in the world for the preparation and ingestion of insects. Sushi is another interesting food. If you're thinking about insects as a little off-putting, sushi is raw fish. It's become extremely popular in the last 30 years and getting more and more popular. There are more than 3,000 sushi restaurants in the United States. Last point I want to make, one thing we can do as the world globalizes, we can pick and choose. We can say, I'm going to look around at all the opportunity, all the way cultures do things, and I'm going to pick the best one. So, for example, I would say that the French have a much better way of dealing with food than Americans, and we can learn from them. I don't mean the food, I mean the way they deal with it. I wouldn't want to import their university system, but their food is really good. So let's just take a look. One of the biggest, French are healthier than Americans. They have half the rate of obesity, and they enjoy their food more. They eat less, but enjoy it more. They eat slowly, and they're much more social in their eating. Here you can see, for example, in a French supermarket and an American supermarket, the standard yogurt container is 125 grams in France, 225 in Americans. When you get yogurt, you just finish the can. Whatever it is, that's your portion. Here we go with fruit. French fruit is smaller. Their apricots are smaller, everything's smaller, so they eat less. Now, here's an example of this. This is just the standard on your left, the standard French yogurt size, the standard American yogurt size. You might say this was all because of the metric system. Maybe it has nothing to do with food. So we went around French supermarkets and we measured everything we could get and found that, for example, French cat food is actually bigger than American cat food. And French toilet paper squares are bigger than American toilet paper squares, even though the French eat less. Okay, so finally, as you know, Americans are obsessed with the health of food, and in fact, what's going to happen is our next flag, I'm going to predict, is going to look like this: the fat-free, salt-free, calorie-free American culture and flag. Whereas the new Mexican flag will be this, because you are the leader in this. So I want to close and just say thanks to Mexico, for corn, which these things come from Mexico. They weren't in the rest of the world until the Spanish conquest. Corn, sweet and hot peppers, tomatoes, and chocolate. And thanks to Mexico for insects, because they're leading the world to a new food, which you already heard was so wonderful. So I want to say, in conclusion, gracias Mexico, viva Mexico.